Let me go ahead and invite the city staff who are here to come on up front, sit up here at the front so that you won't have to walk too far to come up here if you get questions. I want to be able to introduce you so everybody knows who you are. Okay, I've got the 2-minute warning here, so if everybody will go ahead and get their seat, we can start it here. Right. Good evening, everybody. If you'll go ahead and get your seats, we'll get started here. And I want to thank you all for coming tonight for my first town hall meeting with District 3. My name is Mark McBrayer. I am your city council person for District 3, which includes a lot of different neighborhoods all within the loop. We are a unique district in Lubbock. We're the only district totally enclosed within Lubbock's loop. We include many of the older neighborhoods in Lubbock. We have our own specific set of issues, which I hope to be able to address because we have our own unique set of concerns. So I want you to know that it is my goal and my promise to you to represent your needs, your priorities to the best of my ability. And I am always available to talk to you about any issue. My contact information is at the bottom of the survey that I've left, the questionnaire I put on the table. And I really want to encourage all of you to fill that out tonight. That's about the only way I can get good feedback and information other than the emails and the phone calls that come in, and they do come in quite rare. That's one of the most surprising things when you become a city council person is how full your email gets and your phone gets with people calling about different issues. So I've got an idea from those calls and those emails what some of the issues are, but there may be others that people don't call on. They don't express through a phone call or an email. So if you'll let me know of any issues, I will tell you we have got some of the best staff in the world in this city. And one of the big joys for me that I've discovered as a city council person is by the time I see the email or the record of the phone call about the problem, it's been taken care of practically 90% of the time. And by the time I call that person back and say, how are things going? I say, hey, they've already solved that problem. And I get to take credit for it, but I had nothing to do with it because it was our city staff taking care of it. And I really have grown to appreciate them because I had no idea what that would be like. And so I appreciate you all being here tonight. I want to introduce to you some of the city officials who are here tonight. They've come and you can talk to them after the meeting. Some of them will be answering questions or having a part in the presentation that we make tonight, but others are here just to meet you and for you to have a chance to meet them and address any issues that you want. But I would like to ask you to please fill out the questionnaire before you leave and just leave it on the table. I will pick them up after the meeting, but I want to introduce the people that we have here tonight. First of all, our city manager, Jarrett Atkinson. Jarrett, over here. Thank you, Jarrett, for being here. Eric Rahino, our assistant city manager, and Eric will be talking about the street bond here in a minute, giving us some information on that. Police Chief Mitchell, I saw him there in the back row. Thank you for being here. And Assistant Chief Nathan White, back on the back row, who is the head of the patrol division. Wood Franklin, who is the Public Works Director. Wood is over here. Robbie Wallace, who is Director of Development Services for the city. And Kristen Sager is here. She is the Director of Planning. And she will be here to answer questions about one of the aspects we'll be talking about here tonight as well. I also want to introduce Doug Hensley, who is the pastor of this church, Forest Heights. He has been so gracious to make this space available, not only to the Texas Tech Neighborhood Association meetings, but for this meeting tonight. And I do appreciate Doug very much in Forest Heights, a wonderful part of this. And then I have another city council member here who is from District 1, Christy Martinez Garcia, and she's at the back there. And so Christy and I are two of the new members of the city council, along with our mayor and Dr. Wilson, who represents District 5. So you have four new people on your council. So we're all learning together, but I think we've all been pleased by what we found. And we're all here dedicated to working for you. So thank you for taking the time to come out tonight. The agenda will cover three matters. And then after we're done, any other matter or concern that you wish to talk to me or any of the other staff people who are here, you can just come up and talk to us individually about after the meeting. I will stay after the meeting, and so will some of these staff members, to talk to anybody that wants to address a specific concern to them that's not covered in the agenda that we have. The first thing that we're going to talk about tonight is the street bond. I want to give you information on the street bond. The election for that is coming up in November, the same day that we have general election for everything. That will be on the ballot. And as you know, we had a street bond on the ballot last year that did not pass. So we have a committee that we appointed to come up with a new proposal to look at the issues, to look at the needs. And that was one thing that was not done previously. It was just sort of done by the council, but we appointed a committee of citizens. Each district person and the mayor appointed people to that committee. They looked at all the needs. They came up with this proposal, and then the city council voted to put that forward to the voters. Of course, we don't take a position on it, whether it should pass or not pass. We just put it on the ballot. That's up to the citizens to decide. But we want you to have the information, because that's one of the concerns last election, that people didn't feel like they knew enough about that bond issue, how the money was going to be spent. So since you're here tonight, you're a captive audience, and you're hopefully all voters, I hope so, I want you to have that information. So we'll begin with a presentation about the school bond, and Eric Rahino will be coming forward to present that information. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Councilman. It's good to be with all of you this evening. We're going to take a little time, just go over some information regarding the street bond proposal, the package itself. Before we get started, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background, which Councilman McBrayer has already alluded to. So in June of this year, the City Council appointed a Citizens Advisory Committee to get input from the citizens. Each council member was able to appoint people to that particular committee. The mayor appointed the chair, so you had a total of 13 citizens that made up that committee. They were very, very busy. They, over basically the next 6-7 weeks from the time they got appointed, they met regularly, and they came up with a set of recommendations for the council to consider by assessing needs, working with staff, and ultimately came up with a $200 million proposal to focus on expansion and growth. You're going to hear me mention that quite a bit tonight, but I'm also going to touch on some of the maintenance. So it's $200 million bond package for expansion and growth. Not any of those dollars will go towards maintenance. Okay. We'll touch on the city's maintenance program towards the end, what we've done in District 3, what we've done citywide. But ultimately we'll go ahead and dive into it. So Matt's going to help me by going to the first slide. So the very first slide that we have here is what makes up the $200 million in projects. It's made up in 3 parts. You've got arterial streets, which are your thoroughfares. You have some residential streets in the Dunbar, Manhattan area. And then you have the paving of some unpaved roads, residential streets specifically. So, this next map is actually just really the exactly what we just looked at, just in a map format. You're going to see 3 different colors. I think you can probably see them somewhat well. So the red are the arterial thoroughfares. The yellow are the residential rebuilds in the Dunbar, Manhattan area. And then the purple areas are the unpaved residential roads that would be paved. I want to note, as we go on to the next slide, that the committee recommendation that council ended up reviewing, the council did not change any of the recommendation from the citizens. They went with basically exactly line for line with what the Citizens Advisory Committee recommended. So there were no changes from the Citizens Advisory Committee recommendation of the council. Just wanted to point that out. The next map outlines a little more specifically, go back one, Matt, if you don't mind. That just outlines the red again with the arterials only, your thoroughfares, again with a very big focus on expansion and growth. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is the list of unpaved roadways in District 1 and 2. Of the $200 million, this will make up $5 million. And the map that follows this outlines those areas. And again, those areas are in purple in Districts 1 and 2. These are unpaved roadways in residential areas. Go to the next one. This list is a little longer. This one's a little harder to see. I do want to reemphasize, we've got our communications and marketing folks here tonight. They've put together a really great webpage for us. So anything that I have here, if you'll go to mylubbock.us, you can find that there. And every single map, every single exhibit I'm going over is there. It's on our homepage, and you can navigate it from there. This particular list is the $6.5 million that we have for residential street rebuilds in the Dunbar, Manhattan area. The next slide is a zoom in map area of the residential rebuilds that we have, and those are outlined in yellow in the map that you see there. And again, that makes up 6.5 million of the $200 million. Go to the next one, Matt. This is a very busy slide. I'm going to hit some high points here. So we're looking at, if it passes, the council will then issue $200 million in general obligation debt issued over 5 years, 5 different series. The impact over that 5-year period would be 2.6 pennies on the tax rate. 4 years after that initial 5 years, the interest and sinking tax rate would actually drop below what it is today. So it's a very short-term impact. The medium-term impact is, again, 2.6 pennies. After year 9, you're basically back to lower than you are today in your interest and sinking tax rate. These are all based on worst-case scenarios. The worst-case scenario we're looking at as far as, interest rates is 5.6% in one of the issuances. We hope that when we go out on the market that our results are much better. We expect them to be. This is just truly based on a worst-case type scenario. Hopefully we'll see better results once we actually get to the open market, if that's the direction the citizens end up taking us. Okay. One thing that's a little different about this year's street bond is there's really an official contract with the voters done through a couple of documents. The first one is a resolution, and the second one was the bond ordinance. And these really, they support one another. I'm going to touch on the resolution just a little bit. So all these exhibits that I just went over are built into the resolution that council adopted. There are exhibits within it. So every single dollar of that $200 million is dedicated towards those projects. Those projects have to be done. They have to be done first. In the event that there are remaining dollars after those projects are done, after they're well underway and complete, the council can consider reallocating those dollars for a similar purpose, but not before all of the existing projects that we've just outlined are complete. They have to be for similar projects. It would have to go back to the council. There would be a process for it. But again, there's the exhibits that we just went over are worked in, and they're part of the resolution and part of the bond ordinance that council's adopted. Again, I'll emphasize no dollars of the $200 million go towards maintenance. Now, are we not doing maintenance? We are doing maintenance. This year, we did $11 million worth of cash funded projects. Next year, we have proposed to do, and it's been approved by council and adopted in the budget, $12 million in street maintenance. So a lot of that you're going to see in your more developed areas, such as District 3. You're going to see a lot more of those dollars inside the loop than you will outside the loop, because again, they're for existing neighborhoods that are already developed. So go to that first map, Matt. The various colors there, they're going to represent anything from concrete replacement to asphalt patching, rejuvenation, resurfacing. You can see these are the projects that we did this year, most of which are done. There's a couple that are under construction, but the majority of these that were done, over $11 million this fiscal year. And again, if you look at that area in red, a little bit of green overlaps with District 3. If you go to next year's, we have $12 million, kind of a similar type setup there, where you have, again, most of it is in developed neighborhoods, additional maintenance. So going up from $11 million to $12 million that the council's approved for next year. So this is an ongoing, includes again concrete replacement, asphalt paving, rejuvenation, resurfacing, just general maintenance of our streets. I want to go ahead and touch on some key dates to wrap up, then we can open it up for questions. So as far as key dates, Monday, October 10th, this year will be the last day to register to vote. So if you're not registered to vote, you still have opportunity to do so. Monday, October 24th will be the first day of early voting. The last day of early voting would take place November 4th. And then election day, again, would be November 8th. And with that, I believe, Councilman, if you're ready for questions, we can do that. Or...
Do you have any questions about this street bond issue? Yes, sir. Lauren, can you come up to this microphone so everybody can hear you, or I can? Yeah, if you just state your name.
Warren Prather. I live at 3108 20th Street, and we've been there for over 70 years.
Okay, if you just, that mic right there, Lauren, there you go. You can come up here if you want, but
I have a question. I worked for the city for 6 years and I hate rumors.
Mhm.
Okay? There's a rumor on the street that y'all are engaging in or discussing with TxDOT about 19th Street. Is that true or not?
I believe that conversation has taken place. I don't know that it is a rumor. It's, let me ask Jarrett to speak to that. Jarrett, if you'd come forward and tell them what the plan is with 19th Street and TxDOT.
We live on 20th. That's the reason I'm asking.
Okay. A lot of people are concerned about what's going on 19th Street. And the question has come, why did we schedule this at this time? But the city does not control 19th Street. It is a state highway. So the state, Texas Department of Transportation does what they want to do when they want to do it. And they really don't ask us for permission at all. So that whole process was done based on their decision when they wanted to do that. We have no control over that. But there is the possibility that 19th, would you fill them in on that, Jarrett?
Absolutely, and I hope everybody heard what was so well said, that the city did not kick this project off when it kicked off. It's not our project, it is TxDOT's. So to address the rumor 19th, and there should also be a rumor about Avenue Q. A little over a year, council at TxDOT's request made a deal whereby TxDOT would make certain fixes, certain improvements to both of those streets. So on 19th, it's going to run from just inside of the loop where it kind of starts turning into the Idlewild Highway, run up to the Marcia Sharp, jump the Marcia Sharp, and go past that. That will then become a city street after TxDOT does all their work, makes their improvements. The most noticeable changes are going to be over in front of Lubbock High School. They're going to come in, try to square up the intersection of 19th and University a little bit. It will not fix it totally, but they will make it better than it is. They're also going to street parking in front of the high school and try to make that a safer place to pass through. Q, that one is from Marcia Sharp on the north to about what would be the equivalent of 58th Streets before you get to the overpass to go up over onto the Slayton Highway. Most of the work on that TxDOT will do will be between Marcia Sharp and 19th. They're going to go in and pull out a bunch of the traffic lights, set up some controlled turning movements, trying to make it safer and easier to get in and out of 13th Street, which is the old City Hall, now South Plains College, which if you've been downtown, it is busy now with those students down there. It's really good. They will also retop Q from 19th to 34th as part of that. And on both 19th and Q, where they have not already put in the new high output LED street lights, they will come in and do that, and they're going to end up with a better road. We wish they had not started 19th when they did, but they didn't ask for permission either, because right now it is their road. So, sir, does that answer the rumors?
Does that answer the rumors, Lauren? All right. Yeah, that has been one of the questions that we've gotten is why did we tear up that street when school was starting? We have nothing to do with that, but it will be a better road. Ted, did you have something? If you'll step to the microphone, please.
Does TxDOT make the give the okay for access to 19th? In other words, if somebody wants to put a new something and they're going to put a new access onto 19th, is that approved by? Is that TxDOT's decision?
You're talking about a curb cut for
Put in new driveway. Yes, they do. On 19th, on Q, on most of 4th. We have more highways that run through town than you might expect. Once those become city streets, 4th is not in discussion, but once those other two become city streets, the city will have greater latitude to work with speed limits, speed zones. There's some places that probably merit traffic signals that right now can't have them because of how TxDOT does that, and driveways. Yes. On and off and that stuff.
any other questions related to that or the street bond issue at all? Yes, ma'am. Terry, if you'll come up to the microphone, I hate to make you walk, but no.
So what is the status of the brick streets?
Eric?
So when you compare the 2021 bond package to this bond package, plus some of the existing work, everything that was proposed in 21 is either being done or would be done if the 2022 bond passes, with the exception of Broadway. The Citizens Advisory Committee met. They all felt it was important. There was some question as to whether, that they basically agreed the design needed some work, so they decided not to recommend it. The council decided to accept the recommendation of the committee as presented, with the understanding that, they all felt Broadway was important, and that Broadway, we needed to continue work on Broadway, but we needed to go ahead and move forward with the bond package. So
Jared?
Yeah. I would encourage everybody that's interested in helping play a role in what is the future specifically of Broadway. That's the discussion point. That will start up likely in December. So the council has in place a process. It's defined by ordinance. If the city is looking at doing major changes to brick streets, even if that's just pick up what's there and put it right back down, the process is to go to our Urban Design Historic Preservation Commission, seek their input on it, to go to what they call the downtown TIF or the Central Business District TIF, do the same there. Those are both public meetings. And then finally, to go back to the city council, public meeting, public comment with whatever might have come out of that discussion. There is not a design or an alternate at this point. We know there's going to be a challenge if ultimately a decision was made to be historic brick, and that there's likely not enough to do it anyway. It could come from other streets or other places, but that will likely really get going in December, and would encourage everybody that has an interest to come and weigh in when we do that.
So the brick is not an issue on this ballot.
Broadway
That's
is not an
absolutely
issue.
correct.
Yeah, Broadway's not and bricks are not.
There
on
are
this
no
ballot.
bricks on the ballot.
And that's Broadway is a problematic area. A lot of us felt like maybe that was one of the reasons that the project failed the vote last time, because of different opinions about what needs to be done Broadway. And we didn't feel like there was a clear enough plan about it, but everybody recognizes something has to be done. You don't have to drive down it without realizing that it's a problem avenue, and it's not a good introduction to Lubbock for people who come in and drive down it. So we do need to address that problem, and we're all committed to it, but we need a clear plan about what we want to do with it. And we didn't want that to be a reason that this bond issue, to be a problem for this bond issue. We wanted to be clear that the projects that are not us, it was the group that met and put this forward, felt like that it was important that that issue not become enmeshed in this bond issue. And so it's not a part of this one. And I think Eric tried to make clear that this one is much more clearly stated and confined to the projects. The earlier project had a little bit more leeway in how those funds could be used, but this one is really dedicated to specific projects. So that's what we want everybody at least to understand about this one. Any other questions about streets or roads? Hopefully some of you have seen streets being maintained and paved in this district. I've noticed it right after, actually they started paving them, resurfacing them right before I took office, but I'll take credit for it anyway. Had nothing to do with it, but it is part of our budget to maintain those roads in this district. You'll notice that there's nothing on District 3 in this proposed street project other than what we call back of curb projects. Several years ago, we paved 34th Street in concrete, the middle section, and then recently we've just paved in asphalt the extensions on either end, but the back of curb work, the sidewalk, the curb and everything, the decorative work that we did along the existing part of 34th Street and the lighting, that will be carried out along 34th as well. It'll just be asphalt instead of concrete surface on those two ends of the project. So that's what we will get out of it. District 3 is built out. Our roads are built out. We don't have unpaved roads in District 3. We don't have roads that need to be widened or that can be widened easily. So maintenance is our issue, our concern. And part of the reason I have this questionnaire is, what are those other concerns? What are those other issues that are important to you? I need to know that from you. Any other questions before we move on? All right, thank you. Thank you, Eric, very much. I want to give a brief report. Some of you were aware that earlier I had sent out a questionnaire, and I have a website, Mark McBrayer for, I don't know what it says, Mark McBrayer for District 3, I think. You can look me up. If you have concerns, you can address me and send me messages that way as well. I don't have that on there, but I put out a little statement about Maxey Park Pool. And in our current budget, there is no money in our budget to keep Maxey Park Pool operational this year. We have 4 public parks in Lubbock, 4 public pools in Lubbock, Clapp, Mason-Mons, Montalongo, and Maxey. So the pools are in District 2 and District 2, 1 in District 1 and 1 in District 3. Clapp Park will be maintained, that pool. But the other 3 will not be operational this next year. There's no money for them. The idea is to put in splash pads in those 3 parks, and the money is allocated for that. I made a motion at one of our council meetings to put money back in the budget for Maxey Pool, because of all the pools, the 3 pools that are going to be closed, one you just could fill up with water and put chemicals in it, and it would be operational. The other 2 weren't really in condition for that. But that failed for lack of a second, so there was no support for that. And that's difficult, to get a special project for your district that other people don't get. I will be working to try to find an alternate source of money or funding that maybe we can keep that pool open to find a solution for it. There's no guarantees, but I will be working on that. But at the moment, there is no money in the budget for Maxey Pool. So I wanted to make you aware of the status of that. I also want to I introduced Assistant Chief White. He's put on your tables a report on our police department has prepared for this year. So you're free to take those, and he'll be staying after the meeting if you want to talk to him about anything. I know people always have concerns about crime and how our district is patrolled. So you can direct those questions, but those programs there, our brochures are there for you to take, but I'm not going to have him come up to address anything in this meeting. But if you have questions for him, please feel free to talk to him after the meeting. All right, so now I want to move on to the other issue that we're going to talk about tonight, which is the development on 19th Street. We had a Tech Terrace unit meeting last week. Is Cindy here? Cindy Prattis? Yeah, there she is on the back row. Cindy, you did a great job with that meeting, and Don Richards did a great job of sort of corralling everybody for that meeting. So I've asked the fellows who are behind the project, the Up Campus group, to come and give the latest proposal that they have, and to talk to you about what they are proposing to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the October 6th meeting. And my understanding is that it is a new proposal. So what they came forward with at the meeting this month is no longer on the table. This will not be a follow-up of that meeting. It will be a new proposal altogether. So we're starting the process all over again with them through the Planning and Zoning. They will be making their own presentation to it. But the presentation they're making tonight is, my understanding, the presentation they will be making to the Planning and Zoning Commission in October. And George Hardeberger, many of you know, a Lubbock resident who currently owns the property, the Godbold property, and he's here tonight. George, if you don't know him, George is very involved in Lubbock and redeveloping older buildings and projects. Done a wonderful job. I've seen many of them. And then Stephen Buss is from Up Campus, and he will be here tonight to at least give you an overview of that project. When he's through, we'll have an opportunity for you to ask questions and of him or of me, and we'll deal with those questions after he has had an opportunity to go through his program. So Stephen, if you want to come forward, and I guess Stephen, you're going to be the one doing it? All right.
Good evening. My name's George Hardberger. I live downtown on Texas Avenue. And like the councilman said, I do a lot of things downtown. I have a company that I own most of. There are some other people involved that bought the Godbold Center about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And we looked at a lot of different options. on what to do with it. And we really came up with the thought that the best and highest use of that property is for student housing. It's across the street from Texas Tech. It's a pedestrian location. And we think we found the best student housing in Up campus. So I'll be available to answer questions after Mr. Buss's presentation, but I'll turn it over to Stephen Buss, who's the head of Up Campus Properties. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. As George said, I'm Steve Buss with Up Campus Properties. We specialize in infill and pedestrian to campus student housing properties across the country. We've built and done other projects in College Station, Austin, in the Southeast and the Big Ten. But I am familiar with Lubbock. Have relatives who are, and have been down here, multiple times. So it's one of the things. Every campus town is unique, and everything has its historical significances, and everything has, there's certain architectural things that I think that are important. And, I think we, in our early conversations with staff, with Councilman McBrayer, with George, with Eric, it's clear that the Godbold Center and kind of what it is and what it represents is important to the Tech Terrace neighborhood and to Lubbock in general. There's also some very unique, some unique architectural elements in the existing buildings. To the extent that we've done historic renovations in the past to buildings that are functionally, upgradable. The buildings as we have gone through them and walked through them are no longer functionally, are functionally obsolete. But I think one of the key things we want to focus on is, what can we do to move this project, move this site and move it into, take what is a site that's been unoccupied except for Cafe J for the last 15 or so years, and put it to its highest and best use and do it in a way that's respectful to the neighborhood, to the city, and try to figure out what's the right mix of solutions here so that, it doesn't become a problem for the neighborhood, that it actually meets the needs of the students at Texas Tech University. And one of the key things we see in our projects is that when students have the opportunity to live closer to campus, they're more engaged. They do better in school. You're not driving everywhere. And so, when a lot of the development that's been happening around Lubbock, when it goes 1, 2, and further away from campus, you tend to have students that have to drive from longer distances for longer time. There's one simple fact, and I think that helps to understand, is that Texas Tech University is going to grow. State of Texas is going to grow. They've capped enrollment in Austin. Texas College Station, Texas A&M is still growing, but it's going to slow down to some degree. And Texas Tech is an excellent university. And the state has poured a lot of money into your engineering and your other colleges to make sure that the next generation of kids, as they come up through the system, get the right education, and are able to live in the places that maybe this crowd when you went to Texas Tech had, and able to live close to campus. So that's kind of a lot of the big picture. Mark laid some of the groundwork. We are resubmitting this. Visually, it may not appear significantly different on the surface as far as the building itself, but procedurally, one of the key differences, and I think one of the concerns that was voiced, a very key concern, and I think a very legitimate concern that was voiced at the September 1st P&Z meeting was, hey, if we approve this CB2, zoning to CB2, is that going to be what we're going to get? And, as a developer, yes, we would represent, that's what you would get. But I understand the fear was that we wouldn't have exactly been bound to do that, or somebody else would not have been bound to do that, the building that you see in the package here, or the building that you saw back on September 1st. And so working with Ms. Sanger in the planning staff and the rest of the city's planning staff, they said, let's look at doing this as a planned development. And, talking about that with the councilman and staff, we felt that that was the best way so that when we talk about the project here tonight, what you see is what gets built. And that's so that we're not really dealing with something, so we're not really dealing with something that down the road we have to say, well, it was a bait and switch. Nobody wants to feel that way. That's not good for the city. That's not good for staff. That's not good for the public's belief that there are legitimate processes in place to do the right thing. So we can advance the slide. I think, most people are just familiar. The existing site today, it's the Godbold site, which is just to the west of the Staybridge Suites Hotel. It also involves the Texas District Lutheran Church. The Lutheran Church has the potential, if they want to continue to operate, they could go back in part of the retail space. That's a decision that they will have the ability to make when we get down the road. And then it involves those 3 parcels on the backside along 20th. And one of the initial versions of the plan that we had discussed with staff had a standalone parking garage on 20th Street. Staff at the time said that, they really didn't like that plan. And so we revised the plan to move the main parking garage into, north of the alley. And so we'll kind of get into that. The zoning, as you see today, is comprised of C4. There's no height limit on C4. C2 on the south side of the alley, R3 and R1. So it's kind of a smattering of zoning districts. And a smattering of old zoning districts to where, as the city looks forward and trying to figure out how you want to take your comp plan and, take a comprehensive plan that's going to work for the next 100 years. There's something really critical to look to say, okay, how do we want to take this larger site? Today it's, it's got the older buildings on it, and then it has these surface parking lots where George effectively leases parking spaces to students. So south of the alley, you have about 100 parking spaces in the parking lot south of the alley. North of the alley near Cafe J, and then wrapping around to the Plains Hospital and Clinic, and then to the Godbold Center, you've got 125 parking spaces. I can reconfirm that when we look at the survey. But so on the order, you have about 225 parking spaces where people are kind of coming and going all day. Transients, transient parkers, not transient in a bad way, but just transient parkers coming and going. So we can go to the next slide. One thing I think we wanted to also, show is, when looking at Tech Terrace as a whole, going all the way from 19th down to 34th, and then University over to Indiana, is the percentage of rentals in the neighborhood. And as I said at the outset, one of the key things is every university town, every town is unique and has its, has the aspects that that make it what it is, make this town Lubbock. You do see in a lot of campus towns, single family home neighborhoods that have been largely converted to, from owner occupied to renter occupied. And so the basic economics are like this: if you've got a 4-bedroom house, and you have students coming in, 4 students coming in from all over Texas, you've got 8 parents supporting those students to rent a house. They can rent a house and make that house worth more than it would be for a normal working couple. And so largely, by and large, a lot of owners and or working families get pushed out of neighborhoods like that. We see this play out in a lot of towns. And so one of the key things, there's a demand for people want to be as close as possible to campus. And the current generation of students is no different. And so we see that time and again in what we do. So, one of the things to consider is that proposals like the one before you effectively save these neighborhoods. Okay. We understand that it may not be the height or the traffic or the use that you're thinking, and we'll get into those questions a little more in depth. But one of the keys to think about is that these projects effectively do save those neighborhoods from getting further converted into renter, mostly renter occupied. So for instance, between University and Boston, from 19th down to 34th, 72% renter occupied. The further north you are over on that side, renter occupied, you've got some heavily owner occupied towards the northwest quadrant. In the southwest quadrant, and I apologize for the sizes of these numbers, but towards the south, you see a lot of 70s, 80s, and 90s. So there are, it's a heavily renter occupied neighborhood. But by and large, what we're looking to do is to take a site that's immediately adjacent to campus and make it so that it's respectfully inhabitable by students who want to walk to campus. So we can go to the next. I think we presented these photos. Just simply on the left is the existing parking lot. Today there's 5 curb cuts on 20th. Today in the future plan, we go down to 1 curb cut on 20th that's accessible only by about 40 something cars. On the photo on the right is the street view from 19th Street. There's 5 curb cuts going into the whole site today. We're proposing to go down to 1 curb cut. So you're effectively consolidating and reducing the number of access points. Go to next. This is a larger plan development zoning summary that this is, again, addressing that base concern that was voiced. Hey, how are we going to know that what's on paper is what gets built, because the CB2 zoning was a pretty broad zoning. So the concern and it was legitimate. So I wanted to, address it and, make this transition over to doing a plan development versus a zoning by a rezoning to, something by right that may not have resulted in what you thought you had agreed to. So site plan again, getting back here. Let me grab the mic. So up on 19th Street. Oh, we have a laser pointer? Oh, there we go. So, there we go. Thank you. Perfect. There we go. Okay. So, here's 19th Street, 20th. Here's the alley between. Over here is Boston. Over there is University. The Staybridge Suites is here. So, with the plan is to kind of create a streetscape along 19th Street. One of the prior concerns was, hey, how do we create a pedestrian? How do we protect pedestrians, coming out of this project? So in this plan versus what you saw, we've instituted a landscape barrier along 19th, and then we've have our sidewalk continuing from where you are. Here on the northwest corner is our leasing office. So this has a very retail feel to it. Will be very activated. We've got a retail zone here. We have a retail patio outside, and this is where around this retail patio is where we would incorporate the architectural elements that we'll see in a later slide. The architectural elements from the existing Plains Hospital, the medallion with the initials of the 3 original doctors who founded it. And then so from a plan wise, most of your residential is in this building A. It's this building A. We basically have a leasing and club room amenity. We have a fitness center. We have residential units here, some residential units on 19th, and some residential units on this side. And then there's a parking garage here that's wrapped and enveloped, so it's pretty enclosed. One of the comments coming out of a meeting with some of the neighbors a while ago was, well, we don't want residential units back here looking over these mostly renter occupied units in here. So we effectively put the parking garage here. You have the service areas. So these would be loading and trash for the residential. We have some loading and trash for the retail operations here. Here's the retail, but then the loading and trash is back here off of the alley. And so the key point is that the parking spaces that are in here, of which is to be about 400 parking space, 400 or minus parking spaces. These are accessed off 19th. Okay. And then on 20th, there's about, we have other units in this building, and this, which we're looking at here is the ground floor. The key thing along 20th Street units fronting this. So you do not have this garage. This garage is concealed so that you don't see that garage from 20th. So accessing out on 20th are just about 42 parking spaces. So there's fewer parking spaces that'll access the 20th on that spaces back here, and there's about 125 up on the north part. So we can go to the next slide. This is the typical upper level. Again, you have a courtyard. You have courtyard and open space in the roof of the parking. We've got an amenity and a pool deck back here on 20th. So I'm just calling this building B, and I'm calling this building A. So on building B, you have a courtyard back here. This building is 4 stories. This building is 5 residential stories. This is the view, the bird's eye view from this is the bird's eye view from the northwest, looking towards the southeast direction. Here's the lobby for the resident. Provide brick and modulate up and down and modulate the colors as you walk through the facade. One of the other key questions coming from prior meetings was, trying to make the buildings look different. So the building B, which is in back, has a mansard roof. Whereas building A has a flat roof, as you would typically see in an apartment building like this. Next slide. This is a view of the northeast corner, closer to the Staybridge Suite size. You can see that you've got basically the retail and restaurants operations in here. There's about 5,600 square feet in this plan. We would anticipate that would get filled out by maybe 3 or 4 tenants. It could be as few as 1. So that's one key thing there. Again, we've really tried to enhance the pedestrian nature along 19th Street. So you've got, from the last plan to this plan, we've added in this landscape barrier with trees, I think every 50 feet or so along the frontage. And we'll get into the detail. So one of the other things, and we can, look at revising, enhancing the plan. In here is the original medallion from inside the Plains Hospital. I think this is Cafe J right now. And then there's a relief here. At the front door to the Plains Hospital, there's the concrete frieze, FRIEZE, that frieze that that basically frames out the existing doorway. And so the proposal would be to take that frieze and, gently remove it. There's basically historic preservation, professionals who do this for a living. We did it on a building in Chicago, and so you go in with a scalpel, so to speak, and you're removing these. You're gently removing these existing pieces. Go in with a scalpel, so to speak, and you're removing these. You're gently removing these existing pieces, and then we can actually take the existing frieze along with the doors and frame out parts of the patio so that we preserve those elements. There's a handful of other architectural elements on some of the, I actually see them on the next page, I think, where we're keeping the various components that, kind of remind you of the Plains Hospital and what's there. As you look again, here's some of that further detail. Here's that, historic, that architecturally significant header in there. There's some decorative fencing and some decorative window sills that are on the existing building that we think would be cool to kind of incorporate into the patio. And so I think the objective is to really harken back and try to find those elements that are significant to people's memories. So go to the next. Again, this is just back to another street view level of the leasing office. So you can see that we're really activating that 19th Street frontage. Go to the next slide. And then this is the 20th Street side. So you can see that this building is 4 stories. It has a different roof profile than the other one. So it's got more of it's got a residential roof profile as opposed to the flat roof. we looked at, considering incorporating kind of like the actual, the gutter cornice detail off the existing building, something similar in there, if that's something that people think has a kind of a kitschy feel to it. Along 20th, one of the key things is we're looking at basically having more of a residential townhome walk-up feel, so it maintains a residential feel to that neighborhood. This is just a design, as in terms of doing a plan development versus a by right zoning. One of the things we get detailed on is we call out, materials and what's intended. I think we could probably just answer the rest through questions. Do you want to?
There it is. So in a plan development, you submit the plans pretty specifically. Is that what it is? And so they have to be carried out according to that plan, and it gets pretty specific. That's your argument for the difference between this and what came before is just zoning that could be open to anything.
We'll let Chris
Yeah.
answer that question, but she can talk about plan development. Chris is the director of planning for the city.
Yes, so the plan development is different. The original zoning request was for CB2, which would have allowed them to do any use in CB2. The plan development, they've actually also changed their base zoning requests. So the base zoning would be CA, Commercial Apartment District. There are 37 permitted uses, and that's it. So very few compared to CB2. So it would allow the apartments with the mixed use of retail. The plan development piece of it really does tie it to this concept plan. It ties it to the setbacks, the height, the density, the parking, the landscaping. So they cannot make any significant change to this plan.
That answer your question, Ted?
They cannot make any changes ever.
If they wanted to make any significant change, it would go back through this process with the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council.
Now, they have to work with the planning and zoning to make those changes, but they come forward with a concept. My understanding of the PD, it's an overlay over an existing or a zoning plan. So zoning has certain restrictions, and so your PD really has to fit within those. But you have more of a specific design, footprint, everything. You know what's going in there more. All right, it's not as open-ended, but it still has to fit the criteria of the underlying zoning. All right, whereas the CB4 was very open-ended. This is much more restricted in that sense. Okay.
I'd like to say that, like with PDs, the plan is the zoning. I mean, there's the underlying zoning as Christian referred to it, but it's, the plan becomes, so even though CA is the underlying zone, we can't just go do a strip mall. That's right. The plan is the zoning.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Plan is the zone. I had to educate myself on that myself and what that meant. So, anyone else? Terry? Okay, Terry stood up first, said.
No, I just have one question. Since you're talking about design. And it's not any indication of how I feel about all this, but have you considered mimicking the Spanish architecture from Texas Tech?
Yeah, we've had the prior commentary. I think in the FAQ, it's like our architects don't just like to take and copy designs like that, and ultimately, the designs in the Tech Terrace neighborhood there's a lot of different designs in the homes that are down in the Tech Terrace neighborhood. So we didn't really think it would be, the architect didn't really think it was going to be, genuine to just copy, say, Talkington Hall or copy some other building down there. And I think that they, wanted to, give it, I think they, let me read something out of the FAQ, and it's I think it's the building kind of they wanted to exhibit more of a historical a more horizontal appearance through the creative use of materials and a color palette. and they wanted to give it to be a complementary aesthetic, but not quite copy, what you see on campus. And so I think there's something to be said where they've brought in some of the materiality in terms of that brick, the brick color that you see on campus, but without just strictly throwing on a red, tile roof and doing something, I think to me, it just felt like we would just be copying that architecture, and then it might as well be like an on-campus building at that point. I'm not sure that answers your question, but it's a matter of preference, really.
Kind of short. Hang on a second. All right, just a couple of things to address in some of the presentations you've given, sir, and that is on a highest and best use. Where most of us are coming from is a best use area. We're not interested in the highest use of this property so much as we are how it works with us as a community. And since it's very apparent that the community you're developing is your own, it's all within those walls and that parking, then you may or may not have as much interest in the outside community, the Tech Terrace neighborhood that surrounds that. That's point number one. Number two, when we're talking about the fact that it is a hodgepodge of zoning, the fact that it includes R1 is the passion behind this neighborhood. There's R1 property there. There are 5 homesteaded properties within that 2-block area, which traditionally means somebody's living there that owns it, or it wouldn't be a homestead. The 20th Street properties for sure doesn't fit there legally in any way, shape, or form. But the fact that R1 is there, you have to keep that in mind. And when you're talking to us, that's what's critical. But and one other thing too, when you're talking about tenants and rental and all that, I happen to own 5 property. I lived there all my life. We've trained our students and our investment property owners to the extent for them that last 30 or 40 years. And whether they're tenants or not, doesn't particularly matter to us because it is what it is. But when there are 4 people to a property and you're saying, yes, it does artificially raise the value of that property, that's not a problem that we should have if our codes were enforced. Because R1 is no more than 2 unrelated people, has been from time immemorial and always will be. So our issue with that is a whole separate issue. After that, I have this. At no time during your presentation did you address what every one of us and even many in the city feel the sheer density of this project is what the problem is, the sheer density. So if you go further with that, that's one thing that to me, that is the overriding issue right here. 740 students. The walkability, we're Lubbock. We don't walk. We're geographically spread. Your other cities in which you're building right now and have built in the past have come back inside because it's too darn hard to leave the inner city to get back to the inner city. We can go where we want to in 12 to 15 minutes. So I don't see that as a mitigating factor in the sheer density of this particular project at this point.
Congratulations on your project. It looks impressive. I would like to say that I would like your architects to maybe put down their ego when it comes to copying. That's not going to age well. Most of these projects don't age. What you see on the tech campus has aged extremely well. The people of Lubbock love the consistency of that architecture. So I think it'd be nice if they would reconsider doing the copy job.
Please, the second name and come forward too.
Hi, Bill, homeowner, Tech Terrace. I've given a number for the sort of tax revenues that would come from this project. The number was 250,000 a year. Do you know anything about that, about the accuracy of that number?
I think it was more around like a million.
Like $1 million?
We're talking about the city's part.
What the city would get for breaking its zoning laws to give away one of the most valuable pieces of land in the city for a project that would send a lot of student rental revenue, Texas money up to Chicago. So I was just wondering how this all balances, whether you would do this if this were your city.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We basically hire Texas contractors. We use Texas banks to build these projects. And, we have investors who basically are, pension funds and other things like that. So it's, I understand that there's the perception that somehow this siphons money out of the Lubbock economy. I can tell you it could be further from the truth, because there's, we're effectively building a building and paying, as a developer, we're taking on a lot of risk to build a project, and we think it's going to lease, and we think it's going to perform well. But there's a lot of risk in doing that. But, in going through the whole path, we're hiring Texas architects, we're hiring Texas engineers, we're hiring, they're out of Dallas. The engineers are local. We're hired contractors. We're going to be a West Texas contractor. So I think that that's significant to understand, is that there's, these are important jobs. And, we're not just bringing in XYZ person from Chicago to build this. And then, on the other front, we borrow from, you borrow from banks just like people would borrow for their home mortgage. And so those can tend to be banks that are based in Texas. So we don't know what that exactly is at this point. It's premature, but it's highly likely.
Okay, but it does seem, going forward beyond the construction, that city revenues might not even be enough to pay for the upkeep of 20th Street, which is what, brick and asphalt mixture, Frankenstein monster right now. No, I'm sorry, could I get a clarification on the number of beds? So your proposal says 750 beds.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It's effectively residents.
Rooms.
Yes.
So if people put bunk beds in one of those rooms, we're talking about increasing that to maybe 1,000 people?
No, that's the max.
The max, 750.
That is the max.
Then that only increases the population of Tech Terrace by 14 to 15%, all in one block.
Is that what you're calculating as the total population, Tech Terrace?
Yeah.
Well, the university is going to grow,
Right.
and there's going to be 700, you can go accommodate 740 kids down on 50th, 30th, 40th, 50th. You can go further and further south.
Yes.
And all that
Great
traffic
idea.
is,
Thank you.
and that traffic is all going to still come through your neighborhoods. And I guess that's the key thing. You can't just, Texas Tech is going to grow. The future is still there for this university. And that future is in growing. And, I think Lubbock has a decision to make. Is it going to be, we understanding that there's this, important neighborhood. It's unique. We agree with that. And I think one of the key things that we've kind of heard from, we as a developer are really speaking on behalf of students. If we don't do a good job of serving the customer, our residents, well, then they're not going to show up. Serving the customer, our residents, well, then they're not going to show up. Do I want to take that risk of not doing a good job for our residents? No. So, we think we deliver and we build a better type of housing that the students will want.
I appreciated your comment that projects like this save neighborhoods. I was hoping that there would be people here who could address that, the Overton area or some other neighborhoods that have had building projects like this.
I've been here over 30 years now, and all of the Tech Terrace unit officers make sure that we approve of what was coming in our house. And that's just the way it was. And that's not part of our community. This terrace has been here since 1923, when the college unit, most of the tech professors lived here in this neighborhood. You can't even buy a house right now in this neighborhood. There's lots of rental, there's lots of remodeling going on in this neighborhood. But that does not fit there. And I wish we could vote.
It's a nice neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood, and that's, yeah, it's a nice neighborhood. That's what we recognize, that there's safety to that. And we don't think that students want to move further and further east to behind the Walmart over on Avenue Q, or whatever.
This actually in some ways echoes what this lady was saying, but it's a factual question first. You said 72+% of the units of the housing in Tech Terrace was rental. A week ago at our homeowners meeting, we were told that actually 34.4%, I believe, Cindy could correct me on this, was owner occupied. That's a discrepancy. So not 72%, but more like 66%, but that's just.
That's across the whole, so go to the diagram. The 72 is in the block between Boston and University. You're correct, the stat, we're close.
Okay.
The broader base, so you're correct.
Okay. So my question is that it's really not important in some sense, what the percentage is. It's what the pattern is for the argument you presented. You said by building this, you'll actually improve the situation in Tech Terrace because there'll be fewer rental units necessary in Tech Terrace. They'll be coming into this large housing unit. But in order to make that claim, you'd have to have some reason. Have you done any studies about what the percentage in that neighborhood has gone? Has that varied a lot? Has it gone from just a few to 72%, or has it gone from 80% to 72 or 70 to 72 over the last 20 years? I'm a resident, my name is Danny Nathan, and I'm a resident of Tech Terrace for the last 28 years and of Lubbock for 40 plus years. And when I first moved to Lubbock, I wanted to buy in Tech Terrace. It was very hard to get housing in Tech Terrace 40 years ago. 28 years ago, I was able to get a house. It's still, when houses go on the market in Tech Terrace, they're sold almost immediately because it's an incredibly desirable neighborhood for faculty like myself, as well as other people who want to be closer to downtown than in Southwest Lubbock. It hasn't become a less desirable neighborhood. It's still a very desirable neighborhood, and the housing has been kept in very good shape, and there's lots of remodeling continuing to go on. Even on 20th Street, there's been some nice renovations along 20th Street. I think you need to show that the neighborhood is deteriorating because of rentals and getting more rentals than not. It's not just enough to throw a number out. This is a great neighborhood. It's a stable neighborhood, and this risks a great instability into the neighborhood by this kind of percentage of a 5,000 person neighborhood, 1,500 new people coming in. 15% new people coming in radically changes this neighborhood. It doesn't need change like that. We would love to see the development go on 19th Street. Many of the homeowners, I think, feel strongly about that too. But a development, not this development, not a development with so high density that it will impinge on the character of this neighborhood.
Is it the renter? Is it that they're renters, or I guess that's what, so the renters aren't the problem. Well, I mean, density doesn't mean crime. I mean, that's been debunked by the Urban Land Institute. We'll get to that one. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Clay Scott. I'm a sophomore at Texas Tech. And so transitioning, well, as a freshman, I started out at Talkington. So right in the middle of campus, I could walk everywhere. My food was there. Everything I needed was on campus. So now that I am a sophomore, I had to move off campus. I had to move all the way to 114th Street because I either compromised, I paid the same price for the location of Texas Tech, or I paid the price for a brand new development. So this gives the best of both worlds. I'm able to walk to school. I'm able to walk to my job, which is at Texas Tech. I'm a Texas Tech photographer. So everything I do is on campus, whether I'm walking to the gym stadium, whether I'm walking to the USA, whether I'm walking to the soccer field, everything would be right there for me. Not to mention, so my cousin is a cop here in Lubbock, and he said anything past or east of campus is not a good neighborhood to live. Right now, that's where almost all the the student housing is, to live next to Tech. You have a dangerous neighborhood that we're not supposed to be living in, where they say 90% of their calls come from. because you're trying to get close to campus. It's not dangerous because of the students that are living there. The students, and your concerns about traffic. So you still walk to campus or you lime to campus. There's a grocery store you can walk to. You can walk to campus to eat. There's a pharmacy on campus. I have a knee injury. I'm having to go to student health to go get treated. That's a 20-minute drive for me every single day. I'm not wanting to drive.
Could we be quiet in the back? I think everybody's had a chance to speak and people have been quiet. So I think be nice to respect the speaker.
I'm not wanting to drive to campus 2 or 3 times a day, one to go to the doctor, one to go to school, one to go to office hours. Like everything would be right in my, everything would be in my wheelhouse and everything I would need for campus. Not to mention the development that they're building right now isn't affecting or isn't tearing down any houses. So you're only that there is not operational and they're using the structure of it to include into their building.
Well, I think she's speaking, so let's.
Yeah, I just want to let each person who's talking say if you have a comment, please come forward to make your comment rather than addressing it to the person who's talking. All right. Thank you. Are you through? And did you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Shelby Matthews. I'm a freshman at Tech. So I'm new to Lubbock, but I'm from Midland, Texas, which is just down the road. I think one of the biggest concerns is that for me, like I live in Talkington, like she said, I'm right there. So obviously my parents aren't here. And as most of y'all in this room, y'all have kids. Her having to live 20 miles or 20 minutes from campus, we know Lubbock. We know that the weather gets bad. We know that you have to drive. And for me and my parents, I'm sure that they would feel a lot safer with me living 2 minutes from where I live now and being able to walk to campus versus having to try to drive 20 minutes on ice, snow, sleet, stuff that like I'm not used to. I mean, right? If y'all have your own kids, you would want them to be safe. This building is going to be gated. It's going to be safe. For a student, this is a college town. Like this is a college town. We're the future of this. Being able to be so close and being able to walk to campus, being able to walk to my classes, I'm pretty good about making sure that I show up, but there's a lot of kids that aren't. And if they have to drive 20 minutes, I promise you they're not going. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. They're not going if they have to drive 20 minutes. But if they can live 10-minute walk from their classes, they're more bound to go. These are the students that are going to be the future doctors, the future politicians, the future of everything. You're worried about the historical. They're doing everything they can to keep it there. But the fact of the matter is that things are going to change. Things have changed from 100 years ago to now. Things are going to keep changing. They're going to keep developing. And that's a fact of the matter.
My name is Sam Spikes. I live on 2801 19th. We live in a historic house. I've been president of the Overton South Neighborhood Association. We know developers are toxic to a neighborhood. Okay, the degree of density you're talking about this place will cause property value to drop all over the place. It will far outweigh any added tax revenue. There's nothing historic about what you're building. It's generic in looking, and it's a bad idea for my neighborhood. We all in this room have a stake in our neighborhood. These two young ladies don't. I think we have a right to say what goes in our neighborhood. And the Planning and Zoning Commission recognizes the value of a historic neighborhood. And this place remains stable, and the property values will drop like crazy when you put that many people in one place. Thank you. Thank you.
Roger Settler, 2120 Broadway, Historic Overton Neighborhood Association. My question is, why did you select 19th Street? Why not Overton North, where we already have this type of high density, 4th Street, which has that type of high density? Why did you choose a neighborhood where you knew there would be opposition, where you knew it would affect the single family nature of the neighborhood? We've bought this for years in Overton, historic Overton, and we know the destructiveness that this type of density and encroachment on zoning can develop. Why did you choose this location?
We chose it for its proximity to campus, because this is right where, you have a lot of students that live down right in the zone between Talkington and the other dorms further to the west. And, kind of one of the key responses has been, we like that, a lot of our residents we have a lot of women as our residents who want safety and security. They don't want to go further east in the tech ghetto. That's a fact.
We resent the term tech ghetto.
Well, people use it. It's what it's perceived as.
Well,
They're not my word. I'm not making those words up.
But it is developers like you that have created the ghetto conditions.
No, sorry.
Yes, it is.
I'm not.
This type
we
of high
haven't come here yet.
density and encroachment affects neighborhoods, and it's always to the detriment of the neighborhood. It enriches the developer, it impoverishes the people.
I challenge that belief that the introduction of additional housing and people in a neighborhood is a destructive thing. I think one of the key things is, you have people to, fill your retail stores, get into your grocery stores, demanding goods from those places. And right now you have, 41,000 students who have to seek, are living all around town, who have to go seek, they have to go to their Walgreens, they have to go to CVS or go to the drugstore or go to HEB, and they're going all over town to get that. So, I think and they're driving from all over town to come into class. So, the more you're proximate to where you're going to get to, which is for students, their ultimate destination is campus, and it reduces the number of trips that they have to, so they can stay involved with their clubs, they can stay involved with their studies, go to after hours, go to office hours, after class. That's important for students, and it keeps them engaged, and it keeps their grades up. They're here to get an education, not to waste their parents' money. So I'm not sure why that's a joke.
Yes, sir. I'm Holly Humphreys. I live in 3008 26th Street in the Tech Terrace neighborhood. And I just had one question. I had overheard you speak to the design of your building. Can you please tell me how much research your architects did into the local architecture on 19th Street as well as Texas Tech University?
I can't speak as exactly how much. And I think they're based out of Dallas. They're familiar with, Texas. They've looked at they've toured the streets and toured the Tech Terrace neighborhood. Past that, I would have to, if it would help to have another, they'll be presenting at the October 6th P&Z meeting. They can probably go into that in more detail.
Well,
better than I can.
Here are my concerns. I, as a tech grad student, manage the Texas Tech University Heritage Photo Collection. And Texas Tech architecture is not a copy. It is a syncretic architectural style developed on all of the quotations, so to speak, that we might say from the architecture of Spain, particularly the Andalusia area, for which we share latitude, location, and climate, and landscape. And I believe the architect was Wyatt C. Hedrick. Plus, right over here, we have Ricky Maddox sitting here, who worked on the tech campus for many years, and he has recently remodeled his house on our street using the clay seam, right, Ricky? The clay sources to mirror the brick on the Texas Tech campus. So I don't believe a lot of people have any objection to redeveloping that Godwold area. For me, an aesthetics person, and that was my aesthetics professor, Daniel Nathan, who spoke. So everything I say is what I learned in part from him. It's that impact, that is brutalist architecture, vernacular, generic, vanilla. It reminds me of East Europe and the Soviet bloc nations that your architects have created. And I'm just being very frank with you. I think that now I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area where we had Columbia, Maryland, and Reston, Virginia as planned communities. There was a lot of research that the architects did to create a harmony with any new building they put in to the overall look of the community. So I would think that there might be maybe a better approach for whatever you want to build, aside from the issues of density, crowding, that total opposition to all the historic buildings down 19th Street from Boston clear to Indiana that have historical plaques put there but in 1981 from the city planning department. So your building is I think a lot of people may be reacting, not really understanding why they're reacting negatively. It has no human scale compared to those other buildings. And it's very off-putting. It's very stark. But I just wanted to find out what kind of research your architects have done. Come from a university, a BFA, Carnegie Mellon University, which has one of the finest fine arts programs in the United States. And our architects in that school did site-specific that mirrored the harmonious other building around it. And so I would urge you to maybe reconsider the design. Thank you.
Would it be possible to have a conversation with our architect? I think the initial part of the conversation, the commentary was great about Andalusia. So if it'd be possible, are you on the committee with the, are you on the neighborhood ad hoc committee? No, Dr. Humphreys. Okay.
I have two questions. The first one is, what is the plan for all of the parking for the retail space? Where are those people going to park?
In the garage.
So if I'm just coming into town and I'm going to eat at that restaurant, you're going to have space?
Yeah, there's retail specific spaces reserved.
Okay. How many spaces is that?
I think we have about 20, 25 spaces so it's about 4 to 5 per thousand.
Are you going to charge for it?
No, you can't. No. I mean, it's basically for the retail tenants, they would be allocated parking based on how much space they take.
Do you have those tenants already lined up?
No.
Okay. The second thing is, I own the house directly across from the entrance 20th Street. So I'm wondering, how long is this project going to take to build?
The larger one would be, building A would be about 24 months.
Okay, what about B?
Within that, I mean, something less than that.
So how are you going to ensure that all of the debris, all the building materials, all the trucks, all the concrete, all of that end up in our yards across the street?
There's, rules and regulations set up in the city and the state against pollution like that. And so I think that's up for the general contractor to manage, and there's strict, thick document for them to adhere to. And
do you guys, as the owners, come do site checks regularly to make sure that doesn't occur?
Yeah, we've got local owners reps, that'll manage, oversee and manage the construction. We have construction cameras looking at the site.
Okay, and are you going to speak to the alleyway when you start talking about traffic in a minute?
I think we can talk about the alley now because it's a little bit of the issue is somewhat independent of traffic. It also deals with traffic, but I think one of the key things is if you go out back there today, the distance between power poles is like 10, 12 feet. It's really narrow. It's a really bad substandard alley. And I think the existing alley is technically 15-foot right away. The plan would be to widen it out to 30-foot minimum between buildings. So it would be, an expansion and improvement of the alley versus what you see today. I think the other key thing is largely there won't be, the only parking spaces that would access that alley are the like 10 tuck-in spaces, in building B. These parking spaces all go out to 19th, and the other 40 parking spaces under this building go out to 20th. So you'd actually have a reduction in the number of parking spaces that would, potentially go to that alley versus what you have today. So I think another key point is between the Lutheran Church and the parking lot coming into Cafe J, you've got a lot of cut-through traffic coming through that parking lot today. So you can get all the way from 19th all the way through to 20th just driving through those properties. I think the other, getting back to the point about improvement of the alley, essentially there's a lot of power poles on the north side. Most of those power poles we propose to take down with LPL and go underground with them. There's power poles on the south side. Those would remain because these homes have overhead service to them. So there's nothing we can do about it. So the alley itself would be improved.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Prattis. I'm the president of the Tech Terrace Unit Neighborhood Association. Do you mind if I get just a quick look at what we've got here? If you live in District 3, would you please stand up? Okay. If you live in Tech Terrace, would you remain standing? The rest of you have a seat. Tech Terrace unit, yes, stay standing. Okay, if you were at the meeting this past Tuesday night, the 13th, would you remain standing, please? Great, okay. I just wanted to kind of get a picture of what we have. It looks like the bulk of the people here were at the Tuesday night meeting. There were over 140, oh, please sit down. There'll be a drawing later. We had over 140 members at the meeting Tuesday night. It was standing room only. A lot of very, very passionate people spoke at that meeting. Out of that meeting, we were hoping to get a position statement that could be made and carried forward with. At number one, the Tech Terrace Unit Neighborhood Association does support some type of development on those properties. They feel very strongly that this is good for the neighborhood. Motion number 2 comes through and says the Tech Terrace Unit Neighborhood Association does not support student housing as it has been presented. And then the motion number 3 was that we would appoint an ad hoc committee to study this, to report, to advise based on the information they have. That committee has been appointed and has met once already. Information is distributed by me through the Tech Terrace Unit Gmail address. If you've received emails from that address, that's from me. If you look at things on our Facebook page, that's from me. If you're on Instagram, me again. Nextdoor, I posted under my name because I want Nextdoor to be real people. I don't post it on that one quite as much. If you are not receiving emails from me and you would like to, if you'll give me your email address, I assure you I'll always blind copy. I don't think I've slipped up yet. So your email is not shared with other people. Otherwise, and I also try not to send out too many emails, but this is pretty important. If you would like to be added to the email list, just give me your address after this meeting is over, and I will be happy to include you on that. It's a big deal. We've got a lot going on. I've known George for years. He's a good businessman. He's kept me in the loop for the bulk of this, and so I very much respect George for his ongoing support of the Neighborhood Association having a voice. So I think it's really important that you let your voices be heard. We have made a statement. I've sent it to all of the council members. I've sent it to planning and zoning what that statement is. I've emailed everybody I have emails for what the council members' email addresses are. If you would like to express something different from what the Neighborhood Association has expressed, please let me know. But our ad hoc committee is charged with trying to find out, are there alternatives to the student housing? So we've got a If we've got a really good committee that has hit the ground running, if you have input for that committee, please feel free to send it to me and I will pass it along to them. Thank you.
Is it on the committee, how much of the committee are represented by, students that live in the neighborhood?
I asked for people to say that they were interested in serving on the committee. I had a handful who were interested in it. And then I sought out people who I knew were longtime residents because they knew the history of our neighborhood. So I think there were no students that spoke up for it. So they, I got what I was given. And again, I really focused on trying to make a balanced committee with people who had different backgrounds.
But they're mostly longtime owners that are on the committee?
Yes, I think we have I added up, we have 225 combined years of living in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Denisha Marshall, and I live at 2809 20th Street. Am I going to be able to continue? Or do you
Yes.
need to-
Is anybody else going to want to speak? I don't want to keep everybody here all night. So one more to speak? Okay, good. That'll kind of meet my time.
And I have a 1938 two-story colonial that I have worked on and redone and has kind of been my joy. So I am very concerned about your proposal of addition to our neighborhood because I've seen sites like this go up across from the university, across from University Avenue. And what I've seen is them become more dilapidated over time. So my question for you is, how long is the usual time, since you are such wonderful developers of these types of properties, how long are y'all typically owners of these properties before y'all sell them off to other organizations? And then also, what kind of amounts or budgets do you put into vitalizing facilities like this? Because there is such a need to, as a homeowner, you are continually putting money into your home. And I would hate for a place like this to happen on Avenue Q. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with that very tall building on Avenue Q that had a penthouse that was Buddy Holly's penthouse. And now it's a drug-infested prostitute location. So I'm really not interested in that being 2 blocks from my house long term. So if you could answer those questions, thank you.
Generally, we'll hold properties up to 10 years. No, I mean, not the average, but somewhere between 5 and 10. So the budget for, what in commercial real estate, generally what we do is you hold up what's called a replacement reserve. So your lenders require us to hold like 1 to 2% of the annual revenue per year in a reserve. So basically do capital replacements. And then we're required to have upkeep and whatnot as far as like our, we've got professional landscape maintenance and all that. Who do we sell to? It's basically you have long-term, you have other long-term, holders, that want to invest in apartments.
My name's Carl Clifford.
Invest in apartments.
My name's Carl Clifford. I've lived on 20th Street for 44 years. I've listened to your arguments about why this is a great location for this project. And I've listened to the 2 young tech students make similar arguments, and they are good arguments. And that's what scares me, because if those arguments justify zoning change for your property, they also justify zoning change for the property next door, and for the property next door to that, and for the property next door to that. And all of a sudden, 20th Street and 19th Street are gone. You say that tech's growth is inevitable, and you're right. So I guess really what you're saying is that those of us who live on 19th and 20th Street just need to reconcile ourselves that we're going to be run over by developers. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that this property out of the rest of everything is unique. Okay. And it's one of the few that's zoned C4 So we're not advocating for wholesale rezoning, or replanning of Tech Terrace. That's not.
Why
what
is
we're
your property more unique than the property next door? And the property next door
Because
to
those
that?
aren't zone C4 or C2.
Well, they're located close to Tech, just
No,
like
no.
this property.
But no, but these are the existing in-place zoning is C4, C2, R3. So it's a patchwork of zoning, but you know, everything else is R1, I believe.
That R1 law is not,
It's caught between two C2s.
I'm sorry, it's R1.
So should we, you know, there's.
You say that the C2 zoning is justification for what you want. Well, why is that R1 not justification for it remaining R1?
You know, you can argue that. You can go build on the C4, you can go build a Home Depot. And I guarantee you'll have a lot more traffic, way more traffic than this. I mean, that's the complexity of what we're faced with, is that there's a regional plan, and an urban planning is about context, and context that's, you know, people want to be near where they're, you know, where you can access multiple things for, you know, your life. It's like, the school is their work. This is like living across the street from where you work. That's the key thing here, is, and be able to access everything that, you know, again, from classes to office hours to all the resources that are on campus is important for students.
I'm pretty insignificant in the Tech Terrace unit, but anyway, I did the numbers, and you haven't said anything about how big it is or anything. I ran up the numbers. On the average, there's 450 square feet per student. And that's with living space and bathroom and kitchen and all that, which runs up, and you said there are going to be 750 students. You're going to have like 412,000 square feet just for student housing. Okay. And if you add the parking buildings in, which it's averaging somewhere about like 100 square feet, 80 square feet for a parking place, that's 750,000. So we're looking at a total structure, parking building and student housing close to 412,500. I didn't include the retail space and all that. How many acres is over there?
So it's almost 4 acres, but your square footages are off.
Well, what average do you use per student?
Well, the 700,000 feet of parking, I didn't quite catch that.
If you take a 100 square feet per post.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say and bring out for discussion is this is a massive, large square footage property that's going to happen. So your designation of these are somewhat confusing. And one other thing I'd like to say, I live on 29th Street. I now have 2 Airbnbs within the block. So we got 4, okay, is. Something you haven't addressed is we have 3 women or 3 sorority girls in a house. I wake up every morning and I have 3 Lexus and 3 pickup trucks. So we've got 6 or 7 vehicles per unit or per rental unit. I'm just saying, you haven't addressed anything about sleepovers. You said 750 students, each one's got a car. They have, the national average of sleepovers is 1.2 people per renter. So where are the other people going to park? 21st, 22nd. And here's another gripe. I teach at Tech. Students don't walk. They'll ride the bus.
Why does everybody in this room live there? Sorry, I interrupted.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Because it's pedestrian to campus.
Not normally, they take their, if it's a block away, they'll take their car, and dad and mom will pay for a renting space out there in the, wherever. They walk further from their parking lot to class than they would if they were on 29th Street and walked to Tech. And that's just the nature of the beast, you know? There's a lot of other problems I have to talk about. But all I'm saying is your discussion of the square footage, we're going to have a parking building here. I just want to tell everybody, this is a bigger deal, bigger square footage. you're looking at rate of return on investment. Are you a real estate trust? I don't know, I haven't looked you up. But last year, about this time, downtown, through the advice of downtown development, the city swapped a piece of property with some developers in a parking lot the city owned right east of West Texas Hospital. And you approached Texas Tech and said this was going to be graduate level rental space. The same thing here. Downtown, you don't have any residents. Why did you choose, and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why did you choose our neighborhood versus doing the project downtown? Were you involved with that development downtown?
No,
Who says that?
no, I said.
Oh, you did that?
Yeah.
You're not involved with that?
Nope.
Okay, just curious, because I looked into that downtown, and downtown seemed to be okay, you know? Retail spots, places to eat, downtown development and all that. Plus, here's another thing. That property at 29th and Boston on the corner, you stand there and look at all the buses going up and down Boston. You're talking about they're going to walk to class? No, they're going to stand there and wait for the bus to come down. And Texas Tech is going to say, hey, we need 3 buses instead of 1 bus. We need 4 buses instead of 1 bus, you know? And you got more people. We have squatters who come in with their cars, park on the street, ride the bus. We have a lot of problems. It all can be doable, but I just think as a whole, I think you haven't explained the grasp of the size of this. How tall is it?
5 stories.
Okay. About when they did down on back Davis, they couldn't fight a fire above 3 stories. Is that right, Lauren? They let them do it because they put sprinkler systems upstairs, you know, on the 4th floor. How many stories in this building?
5.
5 stories? You know the square footage of the sizes?
The 400 sounded correct. Oh,
400 sound correct?
yeah, I got to go back and,
Okay.
so-
I just want to let everybody know this is a big deal.
5 total. 5 total. 5 total. 5 total.
Including the retail.
5 total.
Okay, so it wasn't just one more.
One more. One more.
2 more.
My name is Catherine Quilliam, and I live at 2901 19th Street, and my family's lived there for almost 45 years. I want to emphasize that this project is very awkward for that space. Talking about how, you know, walking down to Boston to get a bus. If you cross the street there, it's a long way to get to any academic buildings. And the perfect place for a dense population project like this would be down University, close to California Tees and Level Sports and that area that could use some developing and can handle this size of property. And that space, I understand that you want to develop it, but there are smaller, much more reasonable things to do in that space than this huge, densely populated project.
My question might be more for the city. Was it answered about the revenue, the tax revenue? Is it 250,000 or is that increased?
Well, that's the figure, you know, it's an estimate, but that's the city's portion of the tax. We don't get all the tax that's assessed because they're school districts and county, but that's approximately, go from about 14,000 to $250,000. So.
Okay. So according to the Lubbock Zoning Board's planning mission statement, it states the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance is to promote and protect the health, safety, and comfort, convenience, and prosperity and general welfare of the citizens of Lubbock. As a citizen who lives in Southwest Lubbock, doesn't this zoning change potentially go against the zoning board's mission and set a precedence for all Lubbock neighborhoods? similar to what the Overton citizens had to go through.
I might ask Kristen to speak to that. I don't know if there's any real precedence. Everything's sort of taken as it comes before the P&Z. But Kristen, if you speak to that.
Sure. I mean, everything's considered on a case-by-case basis. We have to take a look at the existing zoning, the adjacent streets. Sorry. Okay. Everything's taken on a case-by-case basis. We have to look at the existing zoning, the adjacent uses, what street it's fronting onto. Apartments and mixed use, for the retail on the first floor is very common along thoroughfares. The fact that they do have a portion on 20th Street, the fact that it's residences, we feel is consistent with the residential use that's already on that street. A parking garage in and of itself, we did not feel was appropriate on 20th without any residential use as part of it.
All right, Ty.
I just have a couple of short, very quick questions, structural, operational. 1 to 2% hold back on an annual seems a little light, maybe 3%. The other part of this is what's the building you're building?
It's gonna be a 100-year building.
It is going to be a 100-year building.
Yeah.
Your architect said that. And your structural engineer said that. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
All right. You have any concluding remarks, or Steve?
No, I think just appreciate the input. I think we'll, Cindy, I think we can discuss, next steps with the ad hoc committee and other discussion points if there's. Good.
And if you go to techcares.org, there's also a place where you can click to send me your email address, and I'll add you to that email list as well. Sometimes that's better to just send me an email, because if I can't read your handwriting on my phone, send it to the right place. So again, techcares.org, and you can send me a request to be added to email.
Thank you, Stephen, for coming tonight, and thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you for, I know this, I've lived in this district over 50 years. It's been my home. I'm in my third house on 25th Street. So we just kind of moved up and down 25th Street in my life. And I know that these are passionate people who live in this neighborhood. So I thank you for being here tonight and being respectful. I think we all want what's best, for this neighborhood. And that's a process of trying to figure that out. I will say, if you're not signed up for techterrace.org, do that. You'll get more information than you can even imagine from Cindy. She's really great. Other than just this project, I mean, there's a lot of information you get about this neighborhood. So I'm committed to representing what this neighborhood wants. But part of that is hearing from you and also allowing the developer to have an opportunity to present what they want to do with this project to you. But you can continue to reach out to me. I'll stick around tonight to talk to you. And also, we still have other people here from the city. If you want to speak to Assistant Police Chief White, or Eric, or Kristen, or I think the city manager, he's gone home for the evening. So, he's hiding back there in the back. So he's still here too. And we've got great staff, very responsive staff. So if there are other issues, but again, let me ask you to fill out that survey because that's the only way I can get information from you, is I can set priorities. In October is when we begin setting priorities for the next year. So I need to know your priorities. Thank you for coming tonight. We are done here.